Welcome to Shaken and Disturbed, everybody. I am Daryn Carp, Father God, here with Mother God, my partner, John Thrashoni, the
Oh,
seventh. How
hello.
are? Oh, aren't you going to do a Queen's wave?
Should I?
Maybe your wave is like this.
Every wave that I wave is a queen's wave
A
because I'm a
Queen's
queen.
wave. Well,
Thank
that's true.
you. Thank
Well,
you.
we're finally
Oh,
back in our respective quarters,
I
babies.
know.
I'm
It's
in LA.
true.
John is in Pittsburgh.
P-Berg.
Living up
And
Halloween in our video still. I'm not letting it go. Next week I'll let it go because then it's a week before Thanksgiving and fine. But
mm,
like, yeah.
I just didn't want to well, first of all, yes, we're back. We took a little bit of a quick little week off, but that's okay. And thank you for your patience. We did do an NMR last week though, so those of you who listened to those episodes, enjoy.
Yeah, we read each other's
Um,
poems that we created for each other.
Yeah, they were so
Yes. And mine
sweet.
included magic. Just saying.
It did. That's true too.
I know.
And then on this week's NMR, which came out on Patreon, for those who don't know, every week it's one or the other. We post on Patreon, and then the next week it's public, et cetera, et cetera. But this week on Patreon, we reviewed my AI
Oh my
headshots
God.
that I got last summer, and Daryn was, I don't think I've seen you actually laugh that hard. You were,
Spoiler alert, he spent $40 on 101 pictures of him that all look like him and not like him at all. And we review
yeah,
almost every single one. Like
pretty much.
we
Yeah.
we do. So we're gonna post that video to our
Yeah,
Patreon
it should be
because
up by now. Yeah.
it's so fucking funny. But I think it's just gonna have to live on our Patreon because
Do I have
I don't know if the world's ready, like
No,
truly.
that's true. We'll keep it as a Patreon exclusive. Do I have 6 rows of shark teeth in some of them? Maybe. You'll have to
Maybe.
find out. I have to
Maybe.
find
Does
out.
he have enough teeth? Does he not have too many teeth? So does he have three little stubs as teeth? Maybe
Yeah.
all of the above and none of the above. It's all
Yeah,
possible
exactly.
and with AI. So
Absolutely. So check that out on our Patreon. It's a great reason to sign up. You can sign up at any level to watch that.
yes.
Also, program alert, we are going to be in the coming weeks reviewing the new Netflix documentary Cold Case: Who Killed John Benet Ramsey.
Yes.
Frankly, Netflix loves us. Okay. And they've been
We love
sending
them,
us,
man. They do good documentaries and
they're the best. Yeah.
this one caught your eye actually, I think even before
It
it caught
did.
my eye
Yeah.
before it came out. And so Netflix was kind enough to give us some screeners for this. It's
Yes.
a 3 episode order series documentary, and we're going to be reviewing it. Probably we're going to release it though on our Monday feed. So we'll give you a little announcement at NMR, but just a
Yeah.
heads
You'll
up
see it
in
coming.
case you'll see it coming. Yeah.
Yeah. So brush up and then maybe watch that documentary and then listen to our show because I have a hunch it's going to be very interesting. The way Menendez brothers has been very interesting in the
And I don't think they're going to get
recent
out
months.
before Thanksgiving. Just saying that. I just don't think. I
Yeah. I
think
think you're a
that
betting woman. That's
I think
probably
the
right.
parole board's gonna
Draw it out.
the guy who really like put this thing up originally actually lost his election this past week. So
Oh,
I think that could
the
gravely
DA
affect it. Yeah, I think it was the DA. Who are they
or
saying?
someone
Yeah,
else. Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
that they lost their position. So I
Interesting.
think
That
that's
might,
gonna
yeah.
put a wrench into the whole thing. But we'll see. We'll
Yeah,
see.
let's see what happens. We'll keep you guys updated. We'll be doing whatever the decision is, we're going to be doing a standalone episode just on that whenever it happens. So we will be at the ready. Um, Daryn, let's get into this week's episode and enjoy our drinks. I'm just having water, by the way. What are you drinking? That looks good. Oh, a
I'm drinking a
Celsius.
Celsius, which, we talk about how you're like, yeah, if you drink two of them, you're gonna have a heart attack, which is
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
true. I never drink two of them. But I was reading on it, and it's like, to me, Celsius only, this is just side tangent we're getting into this. Celsius only came into my nomenclature
6 months
two or
ago.
three, no, 2 years ago.
Oh, 2 years ago. Okay.
It says in 2005, vitamin industry entrepreneurs created Celsius. So it's been
Hmm.
a company for 19 years, and only in the past 2 years for me,
Hmm.
6 months for you,
Not
has it.
even
So
really.
just it just goes to show how long, like, to start a fucking
Keep
company,
going.
take,
Yeah.
yeah, keep going, man, keep going.
People are going to say that about this show in like 20 years as well. Yeah.
Inshallah, I hope
Yeah.
so.
All right. Well, let's get into some of the details here. So, Robert Wone was born on June 1st, 1974, and grew up in Brooklyn, New York.
Hey, Gemini.
Um, Oh, that's right, Gemini. Hey, Brooklyn. For not,
Oh,
I
hey,
miss
Queen.
Brooklyn.
Oh,
Um,
it misses you.
no, you're not there, so you wouldn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Robert grew up as a smart kid. He was a valedictorian. I don't know why we just did that. He was a
No, it's just us.
valedictorian of his high school class and went on to attend College of William and Mary in Virginia as a prestigious James Monroe scholar. So we've got a
Wow.
smarty pants on our hands. Um, and it was actually at university where Robert first became friends with Joseph Price. Now, the two had much in common. Both were members of the Academic Honor Society and held elected positions within student leadership. Did you ever run for student government in any way? Was that a
In
thing for
middle
you?
school, I did. I was president. But no,
No?
maybe
Okay.
freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
But no, I was so busy with sports and theater, I didn't have time to run for student government.
Soccer star.
You
Yeah.
know it, theater nerd. What up?
I was the class president my junior and senior years of high
Uh,
school. Thank you very
of
much.
course you were. That is
Except
like such a John Thrasher quality
I
in
know
such a good
it
way. Like you're
is.
made for it. You're made for it.
Everyone says that too when I tell them that, which
It
I
just it
don't know if I
fits.
appreciate. But it does fit, except what happened with that, which after I won, basically means that I now have to spend the rest of my life planning our reunions, which I was not aware of when I was running for the office, quote unquote.
Yeah, you definitely
So
read that in like your the byline, and you'll be like, yeah, fine, whatever. You
whatever,
know,
I
like
can handle
those
that.
don't
She's
happen. No,
17.
every
Yeah. Every
every
5 years, everyone's messaging me constantly. It's fine. We just had
eh,
our 20 year, which was actually really fun, so I should shut up.
that's
But
fun.
anyway, so yes, the two were running for student leadership, of course, and Robert graduated from William and Mary in 1996, but continued his education at the University of Pennsylvania Law School, which is a
Wow.
very reputable school. I think that's one of the Ivy League schools, to pursue his Juris Doctorate, which he earned in 1999. So like this guy is not just like slumming around. He's really got his shit together. Upon graduation, Robert served as a law clerk to Judge Raymond A. Jackson of the Federal District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia, and then later worked in commercial real estate law for 6 years as an attorney with the Washington, D.C. law firm of Covington and Burling. Now,
Wow.
listen, Megan is our research producer here. She probably knows exactly all the shit that's going down. She's one of those smarty pantses as well.
Yeah, who's like into law.
For
One of
me, yeah.
those.
For
One
me,
of
I'm like,
those.
whatever. I'm like, whatever that is. You know what I mean? Anyway,
Yeah.
as part of his public service responsibilities with the firm, he served as general counsel for the Organization of Chinese Americans. So that's a little
Ooh.
background on the smarty pants we have on today's
Yeah,
episode.
I mean, that's a really, I mean, prestigious background so far. Now, on
Yeah,
June
for sure.
7th, 2003, Robert married Catherine Ellen Yu, and the couple lived in Fairfax County, Virginia, which is a really popular place to live, especially if you work in Washington, D.C. I'm
Yep.
pretty sure it's a really expensive county.
Yeah,
Like,
very affluent county.
very
Absolutely. Yep.
affluent. Around 2006, Robert left Covington and Burling and was hired as a general counsel for Radio Free Asia, which is probably really cool to work at. Robert was very active within the Asian American community, supporting organizations such as OCA, which we mentioned before is the Organization of Chinese Americans, and the Museum of Chinese in America. Now, throughout all the changes in his career, Robert still kept up with longtime school friend Joseph Price. Always impressive when people I don't have any like I have friends when I was younger, but not who went to school with me,
Yeah.
which is weird. I don't have any
Yeah.
like elementary school friends or I don't even really have high
Yeah.
school friends. It's mostly college or like childhood.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation. Like who do you maintain or just
Right.
generally
Who's made
naturally
it
connect
through?
with? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a
So
little bit I have close friends from like all different parts of my life, which is I feel like somewhat unusual, honestly, with my age group, but I don't
no,
know.
but I
That's
think
just
it
me.
says something that to me,
Yeah,
that
I
says
agree.
something.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, Joseph lived nearby in Washington, D.C.'s DuPont Circle neighborhood, which is famously, John, the gayest part of D.C. and a very
Oh
fun place to
yeah.
go out. You have gone out in Dude Pont Circle. See what I did there?
DuPont Circle. Yeah, I have, and I actually have a very good friend of mine that lives right in DuPont Circle right now. Yeah, very gay. It's DC though. Everyone's a little stuffy,
Right.
if you
They're a
ask
little buttoned
me.
up
Not my
gay.
friend who does work in politics, actually, but yeah, everyone's a little buttoned up. I think there's like a lot of, at least when I went out, there were a lot
Little
of like,
conservative gays.
yeah, like, or not even that as much as like, guys who will be at like hanging out at the gay bars in DuPont Circle and then say they're not gay, but like they're
Oh,
looking at me a certain type of way,
yeah, it's time. It's really
Yeah.
time. It's also quite incredible to me that usually places around any like capital are usually like such weird fucking places.
Yeah, that's true. You're right about that. Yeah. But
I
I will
don't
say
know.
DuPont, not to talk shit about DuPont Circle. It's a really that whole area, especially in the summer, like around Pride Month, it's a
No, you're
really
not
fun
talking shit on
time.
DuPont Circle. You're
Yeah.
talking about shit on DC gays. It's
Yeah,
quite
pretty
different,
much.
Sean.
I will say
It's
this
not the
too.
area's fault.
I know that's true. I will say this too, like New Yorkers, I was previously a New Yorker gay. When people would like come in and out from DC, it was always like, oh, a DC gay, oh, one of those. Because they always did have this sort of aura of like, yeah, like stuffiness to them. So nothing again. By the way, a DC gay might be listening and is unfollowing as we speak, but it's just true. You guys have a certain reputation down there.
Every gay is different
Every
in the
community,
areas of
yeah,
which they
it's true.
frequent, you know?
It's true. It's true.
Um, well, Joseph, like he said, he lived by DuPont Circle and
Right.
he owned his own row house with his two domestic partners. Ooh, so gay,
Two.
so gay. Victor Zaborski and Dylan Ward. And the three lived as a polyamorous
Interesting.
family unit, which, you know what? Listen, I personally probably could not do that. That is of
Right.
very little interest to me. But I
Yeah.
will say, I've read a lot, I've seen a lot, I know a lot of those things that are super successful. And you know what? It kind of divides and conquers the work it takes to be in a relationship or have a house or
That's
have a family.
interesting.
Because,
Yeah.
if you can only give, let's just say, 70% of yourself to a relationship because the other 30% is working or family or other things that you don't
Whatever
want to
else.
devote
Yeah.
to, then have another person come in and do that 30% for that person.
That's an interesting way to look at that. I hadn't thought about it. I will say also, like,
It's
this is
not
early
for everybody. I'm
2000.
just saying I could see it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is early 2000. So it's like, that wasn't as mainstream as you would think it is now. So I think that's even more of a noteworthy detail there.
Absolutely. And on the evening, oh yeah, because now I feel like they're on the cover of New York Mag, meaning
Let me
polyamorous
tell you
people,
this.
but no one was really talking about that. Thruple was like a taboo word back then.
Right. Right. And let me just say this, I don't know what it is about Pittsburgh, and I'm not necessarily being judgmental, but as a single
Oh,
gay man on, yeah,
oh,
as a single gay man on like Tinder, okay, I'll just be honest. Um, the amount of people that approach me, or well, quote unquote, approach me on these apps who are in open relationships,
oh yeah,
polyamorous,
just looking for a
ethically
third,
non-monogamous,
non-monogamous.
whatever you want to call it,
Yeah,
and
E and
like it
M.
just doesn't work for me. It's not what I'm looking for. But everybody in Pittsburgh seems to be in one of those little situations, and
I've
I'm
heard
like,
that in a lot of places. I've heard
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's probably everywhere. Yeah, that's true. But I've noticed it here as I am a participant. So all the best to them. Not what I'm looking for particularly,
right.
but yeah. So anyway, just to add some more context there.
Well, no, that's helpful. I mean, and this is
Mhm.
2024. So 2006. I'm sure there was a reason
Yeah,
that that wasn't the norm because people weren't open about these types of
yeah,
relationships
that's true
back
too.
then as they
We're in the
would be
Bush
today.
administration at this point, by the way, isn't it?
Exactly. I mean, 5 years after 9/11, height of Iraq War. On the
Yeah.
evening of August 2nd, 2006, when I was just 2 weeks away from starting college,
Oh my
Robert had a
God.
really late night at work and planned to spend the night in Joseph's guest room. Robert left
Okay.
work and went right to Joseph's house, arriving at around 10:30. Now, during the night, Joseph, Victor, and Dylan all heard
Oh,
groaning and thuds. Do the sound effect. Ooh,
oh, here we go.
ooh. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All heard groaning and thuds coming from Robert's room.
Yeah.
Now, groaning and thuds, like depending on, I'm not sure I would go in there. I'd
Yeah.
have to. We're trying to say is it's a nefarious type of thud, not a good thud or a
Yes. Just
groan.
to be clear.
Well, the three went to check on their friend, and he had been found stabbed to death, unfortunately.
Wow. Um, Yeah, so those are not the fun kind of groaning and thuds, I guess is what we're trying to say here.
Not the type you'd hear in DuPont Circle, let me tell you, my friend.
That's right. Yeah. So neighbors reported hearing a scream, later identified as Victor's, during the 11 p.m. newscast. And for context, this was before 11:35 p.m. Now, Victor made a 911 call at 11:49 p.m., and paramedics arrived 5 minutes later, followed by the officers of the Metropolitan Police Department. Robert was pronounced dead at George Washington University
Mm,
Hospital at 12:24 a.m. on August 3rd. Paramedics responding to the emergency call, quote, found the three residents' calm behavior unusual. None were screaming or even helping direct the paramedics, end quote. We've talked a lot on the show about reaction to death or reaction to discovering a crime scene, even reaction weeks and months later. And I think what we've come to realize after hundreds and hundreds of episodes of this show and working in true crime is that everyone does have a different reaction to death and grief, frankly.
yeah.
Um,
And this could
but
be shock because
yeah, that's
the
true.
scream prior, now granted, we're going to get into everything,
Yeah,
but the
yeah,
scream
yeah.
prior was identified as Victor's. So in theory, that could have
Right,
been his like reaction moment. And now he was just going into pure
right.
shock. So in
Yeah.
theory, you know.
And I want to also just say too, paramedics are their own, of course, profession. So if a paramedic who is on the scene and probably has way more firsthand experience than you and I would, Daryn, finds it suspicious, then I think that's worth noting in and of itself, you know?
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Because they're going to see this kind of firsthand reaction way more than you and I would ever. But anyway, so within 2 weeks of the murder, police publicly alleged that the crime scene had actually been tampered with. This is getting sussy and hairy. Hairy like that tarantula back there behind you, Daryn. Yeah, that's right. If you're watching on
Well, it's
YouTube.
on the floor and it's just like every time I sign into with this background, I always check if it's moved closer as if it's a real life
It's
image.
a real tarantula that's moving towards you in the Zoom
Yeah,
world that you live in.
exactly.
Well, investigators spent more than 3 weeks examining the Swan Street row house in detail, quote, removing flooring, pieces of walls, a chunk of the staircase,
Jesus.
the washing machine, which just brought me back to Jodi Arias. Remember she
Oh,
washed a lot of stuff and including the camera.
I literally was like, "Are you going with Jodie Foster?" Like I was
Jodi
so not
Foster.
Jodie
Um,
Arias. We should revisit that case.
we should maybe check in on that one, shouldn't we? It's been a
I
minute.
think we did that so
Yeah.
early in Martinis and
Yeah,
Murder.
yeah. To
We
see if
should
there's any updates.
totally redo some Jodie Arias. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so they were looking at that kind of stuff, even the sink traps. They were looking for details here. They wanted to know what happened. So allegations that the area around Robert's body had been cleaned were
Hmm.
revealed in an affidavit in support of a search warrant for Joseph's offices at the DC law firm of Arent Fox. In October 2008, an obstruction of justice charge was filed against Dillon, who had since moved to the Miami-Dade County area of Florida and was living in a home owned by Joseph. So the next month, in November 2008, Joseph and Victor were arrested and also charged with obstruction of justice. So we're going to get into how and why that all came about too.
Yeah, also like Joseph owns a lot of properties. Just seeing
Yeah,
like he's got a property on there, he's got a property up here. On
yeah.
December 19th, 2008, additional charges of conspiracy were filed against all three men.
Mm.
During the same hearing, the electronic monitoring and curfew restrictions for the three defendants were ended, and prosecutors announced the possibility that charges related to tampering with evidence could be filed in the future,
Hmm.
which is interesting. So I wonder why they let go of the electronic monitoring and the
Yeah.
curfew restrictions because the
Maybe they're
charges were
just
now being able to be filed, but I guess that maybe they had run out
right.
of time on those.
Maybe that's what it was. Yeah, it was a certain amount of time.
The affidavit filed by authorities supporting the arrest warrant for Dillon concluded the men were not telling the truth about what happened. The report states, quote, "The evidence demonstrates that Robert Wone was restrained, incapacitated, sexually
Mm.
assaulted, and murdered inside 1509
Wow.
Swan Street." Wow. That's, end quote. That's pretty clear cut to me. Now, obviously we
Yeah.
don't know who.
Right.
But formal defense in the conspiracy case began on June 17th, 2010,
Wow.
which is interesting because all of this started the week I was going into college.
To
And now it's like literally 2 weeks after I've
commencement.
graduated
Yeah,
college.
commencement. Yeah. It's so
And
weird how long this stuff can take, by the way. I know we've talked
well, it
about
takes
that
forever. Well, so many
extensively,
people
but
sit behind bars too that are
yeah,
innocent,
exactly.
just waiting for it. So
Yeah.
formal defense in the conspiracy case, like I said, began June 17th, 2010, and concluded without any of the defendants testifying,
Hmm.
probably in their own best interest here.
Yeah,
On June
probably.
29th, Judge Lynn Leibovitz found each of the three men not guilty of charges of conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and tampering with evidence. But Leibovitz, in explaining her ruling for almost an hour from the bench,
Wow.
that seems like a fucking long time to explain a ruling,
Absolutely.
stated that she personally believed that the men knew who killed Robert, but was not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that they committed the offenses with which they were charged.
And
So
let's
you
just say
gotta give
this.
at least an
Yeah.
honest judge for that. I mean, we don't know all the evidence presented, but in theory, you know, why couldn't that story be true of them opening the door and coming upon it? Like I'd have to know the evidence that something was tampered with, and then they'd have to prove that that evidence was tampered by
That's what I was
those
just
three
gonna say.
guys
Yeah.
as opposed to the murderer. So I give it up to the judge for being, I think, like rule-based honest here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, listen, you can take the floorboards out, the sink out, do whatever you need to for all the testing, but if all three of those men were there, you're going to see their DNA probably. But what does that say? That doesn't mean that
They
they're
live
killers.
together.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
I always make this joke whenever we talk about this kind of stuff, but like, I lived at Darren's apartment for basically 2.5 weeks. If a crime were to be committed there, does that mean that I had anything to do with it? If you find like my
Yes,
strand of hair? Yes,
definitely.
exactly. Should
Definitely.
I go immediately to
But only in
jail?
this case. Yes. Yes, absolutely. In
Yeah,
fact, we should
there
put
you
you
go.
behind jails, put you in jail
Oh,
now.
oh,
Just for me
great.
and you. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, lovely. We love that
Cool.
here. Um,
Yeah.
so rounding out this case, although the three men have been deemed not guilty, there's an abundance of theories as to what could have happened on that evening on Swan Street. Excuse me. The first theory, and the one presented by Joseph during his initial interviews, is that an intruder had broken into the home and stabbed Robert. The second theory is that someone within the residence was indeed responsible for Robert's death. The police investigation found that Robert had been sexually assaulted, as we mentioned, and they believe that he had either been restrained or injected with a drug that paralyzed him. Due to the discovery of the puncture marks that were found on his body, which that's like a horrifying thing to think about as well. The surgical precision with which he had been cut suggested that Robert had not moved after being stabbed.
Well, if that's the case, then he was
Yeah,
restrained really heavily or injected with that drug because how would you not move after being
I
stabbed? I
know.
mean, like even just like your
Unsettling.
natural, yeah, it's unsettling, right?
Yeah. There were no traces of drugs in Robert's system, by the way, according to the autopsy report. I think in a situation like this, you might just assume there were. But an interesting note that he was
Well,
of
then that means
sober
there probably
mind.
wasn't a drug that paralyzed him, which to me says if these boys, we're going to get to it, are guilty, you could easily hold down a person with
Yeah, for
three
sure.
men versus anybody, but three
Right.
men versus one person, so that they
Right.
couldn't move after they've been stabbed. So I could also see that as
Yeah.
just physical restraining just due to the amount of men. But yes,
Yeah,
possible.
for sure. Well, additionally, while a knife was found at the scene of the crime, authorities later found the blade size did not match the puncture wound that was on Robert's body. So there could be a case here where there's a missing murder weapon as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting that a knife was found at the scene of the crime. I mean, so the killers or in this case were pretty, it was thought out.
Yeah,
Something seemed to be
seems
thought out.
like
And
it.
then the third theory is that the three residents covered up the crime for either one of them or an additional party that was not in the household. Now,
Yeah.
according to Newsweek, quote, when first speaking with police, Joseph said that he found the knife placed on top of Robert's torso, which he then moved to the bedside table. Later, he changed his witness statement and claimed that he had taken the knife out of Robert's torso. End
Ugh.
quote. That feels like a very big detail to
Yeah.
me that you
Yeah.
wouldn't get wrong. You know, like knife on top of somebody is not the same as knife inside somebody, and you wouldn't
Inside
get that
somebody.
wrong.
Exactly.
Police believe that the evidence, and just goes to show, like anytime someone changes their story, man, it's just
It's
not a
true.
good sign. Police believe that the evidence of white fibers on the weapon suggested that the blade had been wiped with a towel.
Mm,
Hmm. It's kind of crazy that it had white fibers on it,
right.
which appeared to support the theory that the weapon was not the one used to
Right.
kill Robert, as it did not have any traces of his gray shirt. Huh.
So then
So upon
couldn't they have tested
arrival,
it for some blood as well? Maybe not.
well, upon
Get some
arrival at the
blood.
crime scene, the three men appeared as though they'd recently showered. Here's what's weird. They were wearing bathrobes.
Guys, come on now. Why were they in
Uh,
bathrobes?
I mean, granted, like three dudes showering
Polyamorous. Yeah,
together.
yeah.
Come out of the shower, they notice that their fourth roommate is dead.
Right.
You're not going to change.
I guess
In theory,
so. I
you're
guess
not going
so.
to change. Um, a little odd, though.
A little bit.
Now, authorities also speculated that the lack of blood at the scene and around Robert's body suggested that either it had been cleaned up or that Robert had moved.
Mm.
I would think that they would know if he had moved,
If
though.
is
Like,
one of the things I feel like I learned from the Scott Peterson research and documentary and everything is like if you're going to move a body, no matter how hard you think you've cleaned everything up and left no traces, the reality is there's almost always indication about a moved body. So,
Jean Benet, hello. Not that
yeah.
we're going to tease next week's episode, but Jean Benet, I mean, they rolled her up and moved her.
Yeah,
The whole
right.
crime scene had been futzed with.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
well, do the not guilty verdict here on lack of evidence to pursue further, this case will likely remain unsolved, which seems wild to me how this could have happened and how someone could have gotten away with it, especially the odd circumstances, like no struggle after he was obviously found there. Why did they call the cops?
Yeah,
Why wouldn't they like get rid of the body in some sort of way? They placed the body, if they did it, which
potentially.
we potentially did it.
Yeah.
They kept the body inside their property, which is automatically
Yeah.
going to make them suspects. Obviously, it's hard to move a body, but there's three of them. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's super sad, and that family deserves its due. So
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just going to say is like it's sad that there probably isn't, I don't know what kind of family he has. It doesn't sound like he comes from like a large family of people that are going to go out and like try to find justice for him. But, I hope that one day there is justice. I hope that there are people out there that are interested in a case like this. Um, you know, doesn't seem to
I
have
just
any
hope it.
children, so part of
I
the
hope
reason
it
we
gets
wanted to
solved.
share it on this week's episode is just to bring light to it. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
let us know what you guys think of the case. Sorry, it's not more conclusive and it doesn't end with a little cherry on top, unfortunately. So this
right.
case is recent and not closed. So, let us
Yeah,
know what you think about it, or if you live in Washington, D.C. area, if you've heard of it. Let's
right.
get to some listener shout outs. So
Yeah.
Ashley on Facebook wrote a really sweet message to us saying, quote, I love the NMR episode from this week. You guys are just too cute. I love the friendship you have. What friendship? The poems were just the sweetest. For some reason, this episode just made me so thankful for you guys and all that you
Oh,
share with us. I just wanted to say thank you. She went on to say, actually, thanks for always making me laugh. Love you, Father God Daryn Carp and Mother God John Thrasher. You're the best.
oh,
Which
thank
is
you,
very sweet,
Ashley.
Ashley. That's so nice. I
Listen,
don't know what
last week,
friendship you speak of, but in
yeah,
theory,
it's
it's
not
nice.
present on today's episode, that's for
Not
sure.
there. Yeah, not there today.
I will say, last week was probably chaotic and unsettling for a lot of people, given frankly the election results. So to know that we put a smile on your faces, and that Ashley isn't the first person or only person to say that. So knowing that we could contribute to some of the escapism, we really love that. So thank you, Ashley, so much for that.
Yeah, that was really sweet. John,
Um,
why don't you take the next one?
Yeah, I just want to give a little happy B-Day to my Appalachian sister living in the UK. Happy birthday week, actually, to Andrew. Love you, miss you, girly, and I can't wait to see you again soon.
Hey, girly.
Hey,
Girly is
girly.
also in the new nomenclature that has really only
Yeah,
come into like the only way I used to say girly is like, oh my God, she's so girly. Like they're just
Yeah.
like it's a
Well,
girly style or something like that in a way that I'm not girly. But now everyone's like, say what up to my sis, say what up to my girlies.
let the gays
I
have their nomenclature,
yeah,
Daryn,
yeah,
okay?
because they don't steal anything from women.
Oh, shit. Oh, shit.
Oh, guys, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube.
That's
Smash
right.
that subscribe button, John. Do it. Smash it. Do something for women once in your life. Thank you. Wow.
Oh my
Wow.
God.
Do
Y-
something.
You're on
Stop
another
shitting on
level
us.
today.
This.
Stop saying that. I love women. Thank you very much.
Oh, so now you love women? God, creep,
Oh my
weirdo.
God. Sign off this
Guys,
episode. Delete your account.
sign up to Patreon just to watch John's different 101 versions of Dalmatians AI that John is. So definitely do that. But subscribe to YouTube. We have a case every single week, teasing Jean Bonnet for next week. Um,
Sometimes you'll
yeah,
hear poems on there before anybody
you
else.
really never know.
It's a great way to support the show and get some extra contents.
Absolutely, love it so much.
All right, and of course, we're kind of rounding out autumn to some degree, but I still think my allergies are messing with me. So as always, take your Zyrtec.
And I'm gonna throw it back to something, a case. It's been a while. You're gonna have to go back. I don't even remember what episode, but check your
Okay.
pits,
Oh
especially if you have
God.
a penis.
Oh
Just
dear.
it's just good, just
Good to
wholesome
do
advice for
that.
you. Yeah, it's good to do that. Good to do
Okay.
that. Okay,
Okay. Great.
cool.
Glad we got that out of the way.
We
All
did,
right.
thank God. Thank God.
We'll we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.